staff. Wonderful way to go out. They say a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. For the championship season of the 1952 football team, that single step was taken 3 years previous when Coach Joe Zeno walked through the door of Watertown High School. Tonight we honor that 1952 football team. Bob Caprillion speaks of Joe Zeno. I think I can speak for all the people who played for Joe during his coaching years when I say we didn't always know who was going to win the game, but we always know who had the best coach, and he was on our side of the field. He certainly was. The tough teams of the 40s were to be molded into the championship teams of the 50s, and the die was cast immediately in 1949 when the Raiders went 8-1. Many classic games have been played at Victory Field, but one of the most exciting took place that fall when undefeated Watertown took on undefeated Arlington. The winner would take the state title, Arlington in Class A and Watertown in Class B. Town pride swelled and more than 10,000 people crowded the Victory bleachers. And while Arlington won that day, the Zeno men made their point loud and clear. Football was back at Watertown High. In taking the team to the next level, Zeno had some pretty rugged raw material with which to work. On the opening day of practice for each of his 5 years at Watertown High School, between 150 and 180 candidates would show up for football practice. For a sophomore to get even a practice uniform was a major accomplishment. Zeno was able to pick the best of the best in an era marked by an abundance of talented backs. He must have regretted at times having just one ball. Calling the alphabetical roll shows that everyone on the team had the ability to contribute game after game, and they did. George Abadaba Abasian, Hank Agahigian, Freddie Alberico, Frank Basile, George Chuchu Shashudian, Marty Kleins, Larry DeAngelis, Dingy Deldon, Jim DeSimone, Bobby Emerton, Harry the Duck Gardikian, Doug Ferguson, Larry Foley, Paul Franke, Manny Gaipo, Art Galanian, John Giglio, George Coco Gagordian, Jack Hamilton, Lenny Hill, Bob Hirschfeld, Bob Caprillion, George Kachichin, Frank Kelly, Fred Kelly, Joe Malley, John Marini, Joe Mastrangelo, Tony Massini, Aram Miller, Ed Morahan, George Renanian, Bill Purcell, Nick Rostanzo, Dom Russo, Stu Packard, Babe Samorian, assistant coaches Jim Sean, John Mantenuto, Charlie McGann, Ed Ward, and managers Richie Mastrangelo, Jack Pagarian, and Joe Topchin. Indeed, by 1952, Joe Zeno was having trouble finding Class B teams willing to put the Red Raiders on the schedule. 7 teams begged off the Watertown slate in Geno's first 4 years, and Zeno, no doubt with tongue-in-cheek, couldn't understand why. So they had to schedule Class A football teams. In any case, in 1953, the bulk of the schedule was made up of those Class A squads. Just 2 Class B teams, Winchester and Belmont. They would play Watertown, and the Raiders would show why they shouldn't, as they beat the 2 by a combined score of 77-0. Winchester was only the defending Class B champ, but behind Samorian's passing and Morahan's soft hands and Tony Messina's defensive plays, the Raiders piled on 33 unanswered points. The season capping 44-0 thrashing of Belmont on Thanksgiving Day remains the largest margin of victory in the history of the series. In between came everything Class A could throw at Victory Field, yet the Watertown line was not scored on from the line of scrimmage except in one game. Previously undefeated Newton was held to -7 yards on the ground by outstanding teamwork of Packard, Emerton, Ferguson, Papelia, Giglio, and Malley. Against Malden Catholic, Manny Gaipo picked off 2 key passes to set up long touchdown from Lenny Hill, while Gregorian, Alberico, Basile, and DeAngelis split the ball carrying duties. Final score, Watertown 32, Malden Catholic 7. Overall, the Red Raiders ran up 187 points to their opponent's 55. They lost only to powerful Brookline. Samorian, Gaipo, Papelia were the top players in the Suburban League. Zeno was Coach of the Year. Watertown had a Thanksgiving Day romp and brought home a championship. The underclassmen of 1952 would lead the Red Raiders to another Class B championship in 1953. In those 5 short years, Joe Zeno had truly brought Watertown High on a long, exhilarating journey. The impact of those years still echo loudly at Watertown High School football in their football history. But they echo to a more important set of histories in the shaping of young men, not just in the players, but people. Samorian, in his own Hall of Fame induction some years ago, recalls Zeno as, next to my father, the most important influence in my life. Through his caring leadership, Joe Zeno shaped many Watertown boys into the men they'd become, and through their lives, he lives still. Tonight, many of those Zeno men are standing here. They're still a team. They're still champions. The Hall of Fame is proud to pay tribute to Coach Joe Zeno and the members of the 1952 Class B state championship team. Could we have that 52 team come on up here, please? What a wonderful history lesson that was for me.